a member of this church, First Congregational, and it's my privilege to interview a past minister here at First Congregational, Jerry Jordan. So I'm glad to be able to sit down with you. I know you for a number of years now, but don't know everything about you. So that's why we're here, for me and for others who will see this later, to find out about your pastorate here and your life. So welcome to this time together.
Well, tell me what you want to know.
Well, where did you come from? Where were you born and where did you grow up?
I grew up in western Oklahoma on a cattle ranch and a farm in the town of Clinton, Oklahoma. We still have the ranch, we still have the farmland, although I did not stay with the land. My twin brother did. He's retired, I'm retired. But I heard the call of a shepherd, which caused me to go to be a minister. My father wanted me to be an auctioneer, cattleman, but I ended up being a minister.
Did you do any auctioneering?
I've done, yes I have. Down on the five, 75, 95, oh. I went to National Auction Institute in Bryant, Texas, and became what they call a colonel. Because back in the Civil War time, the colonels were the ones who sold the property. And so I graduated from auctioneering school when I was in high school. But I went on to Oklahoma City University. Well, prior to that, I was in high school, sports, basketball, football, etc. Then went to Oklahoma City University, which is a Methodist college. Then after that, I went on to Union Theological Seminary in New York City. Now that was quite an ordeal for me, because here's a person off of the farm, the ranch, going to the big city of New York.
And Union Seminary is one of the preeminent, rather progressive seminaries in the country.
It is, and many of my classmates were from Harvard, Yale, Princeton, etc. And I felt, ooh, I'm in a big league. But I soon caught up with them, and Union Theological Seminary was very instrumental in my development of ministry, and I loved the school to this day. After I graduated from there 3 years, I became a campus minister at Southwestern State College. I was a Methodist at the time.
What state was that?
Oklahoma.
Oh, back in Oklahoma.
Back in Oklahoma. I was a Methodist, ordained a Methodist. So I was a Wesley Foundation director at the college. Then I served also a church in Santa Fe, New Mexico as an associate minister. Moved to St. Louis, where fortunately it was a good move because I met my wife.
I'm sure that was good.
Oh, it was beneficial to the max. And I was an associate minister at the church in St. Louis, Bellefontaine Neighbors. But at that point, I decided I didn't want to be a Methodist anymore. I wanted to be my own bishop. I wanted to make the decision where I went. I wouldn't want to be appointed to go here or there or wherever. And the church in Columbia, Missouri, a campus church, was open, but it was UCC. So I went to Paul Raymeyer, who was the conference minister, and asked for a privilege of call. And I was granted a privilege of call. And that church then called me and asked if I could be interviewed, and I was hired to be the minister there. While there, unfortunately, prior to my going to that church, they had a fire in the sanctuary. So the building where it was used was half used. So I helped build a whole new church structure a church in the round. We were given property, new property, and we built a whole new church. I stayed there 6 years.
And this was early in your ministry. You were a young man at that
Early in
point.
my ministry, yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I went there in 68 and left in 73.
Mm-hmm.
So 6 years. The church, in fact, has invited me back in September of this year because they're celebrating their 100th anniversary, and they want me to come to be a part of that. I have received a call from Mary Lou Anderson, who was a member of this church and head of the search committee, wanted to know if I would be interviewed. I said, well, yes. And one thing went to another, and I came out. I was interviewed and offered the position here.
And what year was that?
73.
1973. Mm-hmm.
And so I was here at this church then for 15 years, 73 to 88.
Pretty long pastorate.
Well, it was a wonderful time. It was a wonderful church. And to me, my heart is always in this church because there's something special here. So it was interesting when I first came. The minister who preceded me, Doug Wasson, wonderful man, but the first thing that was offered me was, I was asked, could he do the wedding of some people in the church? I said, sure he can. I'm just new on the block, a week or two in. Mm-hmm. I thought to myself, if I said no, that's not going to be a good start. I said, sure, but I'll tell you what, why don't we do it together? Mm-hmm. We did it together, and everything was calm, quiet, peaceful, helpful. My ministry got off to a good start.
Sounds like a kind of a transition where
it was
he had his last little part and you were starting.
Well, I didn't want any ruffled feelings.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things, though, I experienced when I first came here, we had a different kind of roof on this building. It was a silver roof. And I always heard that airplanes used it kind of as a point that they always looked at. But it was getting pretty worn. And it was beginning to leak. We had a tremendous rainstorm, and we had buckets on all the pews collecting water. So we had to get a whole new roof.
So that meant a building campaign, I suppose, to raise money.
Well, I don't know. I don't remember how we did it, but we had to do it because we had a problem. The second problem was the organ needed to be totally redone. Kurt Roederer from Chicago came and took that whole big organ that we have out and laid it all on the pews on the east side of the sanctuary. So when I came, we had the water problem, we had the organ problem, but we got it fixed. And I thoroughly enjoyed my ministry here. One of the things that I really enjoyed was children's. I kind of specialized in children's sermons, and as a result, I got 4 books of children's sermons.
Yeah.
published.
I got to tell you how I came to know about them. I was a chaplain in West Berlin in the 1960s, and I had to give children's messages at our community chapel. We had families there, even though it was military. And I happened to come across an advertisement for a book of children's sermons. And so I bought it and used it. I flagrantly copied just what had been written in that book about brown bag sermons. And the author was Jerry Jordan, I thought, what a gift. I got this help. It sort of helped me to develop my own.
Sure.
And so I really prized that. I had no idea that I would ever come to this place and meet the author. So that just rings a bell with me to hear about those books. But tell us about those.
It's interesting. There were three of initially brown bags books. Brown bag, another brown bag, one more brown bag. And each one had 50 sermons in it. I got a letter from a Catholic priest in West Virginia. He saw the book with one of the sermons. He wrote me and said, "Can I use it?" I wrote him back and said, "Well, sure you can. I've used it. It was inspired by something other than me, so it's no longer mine." I said, "Take it, adapt it, and use it however you feel best." My fourth book that I did was on how to do children's sermons, a theory book on what to do and what not to do. And so those are the four.
Well, I've not seen or read that book, but can you say a word or two about what you advise those who give children's messages?
Yes. I always, in all my children's sermons, I had one point that I always wanted to make. Even though I brought it up in my brown bag, I brought it some the kids were familiar with, and I lifted it up, and then out of that I would do my message. But I always came down to one thing. God loves you. Never forget that. God loves you, God loves you, God loves you. And that was always the thing that I wanted them to know. And to not only do God loves you, but we're to love each other. Those were the messages that I always somehow brought back.
Timeless truths, certainly.
Now I'm working on another book, which I hope maybe next week or 2 weeks from now I'll send not children's sermons, but adult sermons. One of the things I learned while I was in ministry was to listen to what people ask. And I often was asked, what does this mean? What does the Bible say? Should I believe this? So I have 30 question sermons. A sermon that would ask me, and so I would answer them, but then later would say, maybe I need to spell this out more fully. For example, I was asked to go to a kindergarten class here for a few minutes. So I sat down and the kids were all on the carpet before me. And I tried to explain a little bit, well, there's God, there's Jesus, there's the church. And one little girl put up her hand and said, "Who made God?" I've never been asked that question, not even in seminary. And I said, "Do you have any secrets?" She said, "Yes." I said, "That's a secret God has that we haven't yet gotten." So I developed that into a sermon on who made God. But I have 30 questions. For example, the lead sermon is, what do we do to be happier? Well, the list is long, but 30. Every one is a question. The title of the book is Ask the Pastor, Q&A. Now I'm sending it to HarperCollins Christian Publishing, and I hope they will accept. What they asked for me is a brief description of each sermon as to what it is. Then they'll make their decision whether they accept my work.
So that's in the mill.
That's in the mill.
Yeah.
And in the next week or two, it will go to San Francisco to the publishing house. And I hope the editor likes it. We'll see.
Well, I hope you will be in the founder's room with copies of your book that we can all line up and buy.
Well, I would hope, maybe. We'll see.
Yes, great.
But over the years, this church has meant so much to me.
Now, did you stay here when you retired
No.
from the pastorate here, or did you go on somewhere else?
I went else. After 15 years, I was asked my church in Wisconsin, Lacrosse, Wisconsin, they wanted to interview me. I said, where is Lacrosse? I didn't know where Lacrosse was. Joe Pickle said to me, I asked him, he said, oh, that's a really nice town. It's on the west side of Minnesota, or Wisconsin, next by the Mississippi River. Well, they sent me some material. I threw it away. And they said no. 2 months later, they come back to me and say, would you reconsider? Mm-hmm. And I said no. They came back a third time, and my daughter said to me, oh, Dad, go look at it. You don't know. So I said, okay, I'll come and interview. Well, this is a church that had been hurt pretty badly. It's a church of about 1,000 members. My two the head minister, the associate minister, had the lawyers against each other. No. It's a bad situation. Somehow I felt like I was being called to a new situation to try to help that church. Well, I went, after the interview, we had a gigantic snowstorm in Wisconsin, enough so that couldn't even fly out. But I said, by and land, do I want to come here? Nevertheless, it was a very good transition. Mm-hmm. My daughter met her future husband there. And by the way, Lacrosse, Wisconsin is a wonderful part of the University of Wisconsin. The university, and my grandson is going there this coming year on a track scholarship.
Oh, really? So you still have a connection.
I have a connection. Yeah. And since my wife's death last year, the church in Lacrosse not only gave me a minister emeritus when I was there, but they're putting together a marble seating area with her name and my name on it by the entrance of the church. I said, you're doing what? But I must have done something right.
Yeah, I guess so.
Anyway, so we stayed there 12 years.
12 years.
3 more years in the town, but then I said, I've got to go back to Colorado. I've got to go back to Pikes Peak, because that Pikes Peak I've climbed 34 times.
Is that right?
And I said, to me, it's a must. So we moved back, but by that time, Colorado Springs had grown exponentially, and we decided to look around, and we bought a house in Woodland Park. Mm-hmm. Then later built another house. So we've lived in Woodland Park since 2003. Mm-hmm. I retired in 2000. It's hard for me to realize that, gosh, that's 23 years I've been in retirement.
Yeah. So the Lacrosse Church was your last pastorate?
Yes, last pastorate. Now, in the meantime, I've been going down to Silverton, Colorado, the Congregational church there, in the summertime to preach. And I've enjoyed that immensely. But so basically, I'm in retirement.
But you've not been idle. You've been busy writing with this book coming up, with helping this church in Silverton.
Yeah. And
being a regular presence here at First
Well,
Congregational.
it's interesting. When I came back, Jim White was still here. I was here 15 years. I think he stayed just 16 years. He said to me, "Oh, Jerry, come on back, sit in the back pew, enjoy yourself." And I was given minister emeritus here too.
Well, you got two.
I got two.
I don't know anybody else who's pastor emeritus at two churches.
Well, I minister emeritus doesn't mean much except sit on the back pew, keep your mouth shut.
Yeah.
But no, it was a great honor, and so I have two.
Yes. Well.
And I have two children. A son who lives in Maryland now, and he works for a company that helps the poor in Africa and other parts of the world. It's called Think Well, and his work is to help the Ministry of Health in a particular country like Uganda to have better care for their people. So that's his work.
Mm-hmm.
And my daughter is a school teacher in Cheyenne Mountain School District. I have 4 grandchildren. My 2 are going to college this year, coming year, and 2 are sophomores in high school. My one grandson, who is a sophomore, was born with an open heart, and they put in new walls in his heart. He now stands 6'2", and can drive a golf ball 200 yards right down the middle.
Right.
So
that's wonderful.
my family is doing okay. That family's okay. My daughter's family's okay. I'm a blessed man.
Now, you said that you lived for many years in Woodland Park, but you're not there anymore.
No, we have. We're trying to sell the house right now. I now live in an independent care living, Palisades here in Colorado Springs. My daughter and son said, "Dad, you can't live in that big house because it has 6,300 square feet." They said, "You can't live in a big house like that. You're just going to be a hermit going from room to room." So they said, "This is where I'm to live in Palisades." So we're trying to sell the big house.
And so you're comfortably settled now at this new place.
I'm almost squared in, and I like it very much. It's a wonderful place to live.
Yeah. So what would be your hopes for this church in the future as it goes on now?
Keep the faith. And the faith is we're called to love people, care about people, and to speak up for the disadvantaged, to deepen our awareness of who God is. There's a mystery about God, and that mystery is not just not knowing. It's when we look at the sunset or the life and nature, there's something more beyond that. And that more beyond that is the one that made all of this possible. And I think what we want to do is not only reach out to people, but reach up to God or wherever God is and allow that force to be within us. We need to deepen our spirituality always. And that's why when I come to church, I want to feel like I'm in touch with something beyond me. And I want this church to reach out that way to everybody.
Well, it's been a pleasure to talk with you. I learned so much more about you, Jerry. Everything I knew was good. Now it's expanded so much to realize what you've contributed to different churches, to so many lives, and to see your ambition and enthusiasm for the future.
Well, as I look back on this church, there's many things that I could explain. For example, we housed the Korean congregation for a while. We took in Cambodian refugees for a while, and realized that we needed help with other churches by all the other Cambodians who came. We started ESM, which I was a part of ESM.
And that really contributed to the lives of a lot of homeless and poor people in town for many years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So that was a part of my ministry here. I'll never forget, we had Pride Sunday last Sunday, and there was a group of homosexual choir from Denver that was going to sing in Colorado Springs. And they were turned down again and again. And they came to me and said, "Can we use your sanctuary?" I said, "Sure you can." I didn't ask anybody. I said, "Sure you can." One of the best concerts we ever had here.
Mm-hmm.
There was another group, another couple, that were, they were of a different faith in terms of Hinduism. And they wanted to know, could they use our sanctuary to have a wedding?
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Sure you can." And we made the front pages of the Gazette.
Yeah. A little unusual here in this town.
Very unusual.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But that's the open spirit of this church, is to reach out to other people.
Yeah.
75% of the people that I married in this church were not members of this church.
Mm-hmm.
Because the other ministers in many churches would not accept them unless they were part of them.
Yeah.
And I said, "No, if you need help in a way, let me counsel with you and talk with you, but I'd be happy to help you."
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I did a lot of ministry.
Yeah. Well, it just seems to me that we've had a long line of wonderful ministers here in this church, but I see the seeds for where we are today, and much of what you did in your ministry, opening up the church. I'm sure it was open before, but what you did was substantially widen the open arms of this church to the community, to people who might otherwise not be accepted, and led the way to where we are today as a progressive, open church welcoming all.
Well, I think it was even before I ever came, the seeds were planted.
Mm-hmm.
You go back to the early minister who built this church, Greg. Mm-hmm. He wanted this church to be that kind of church, open and progressive, even back in that early day.
So as we have this big anniversary coming up and thinking about where this church has been, it was there in the very beginning.
That's right.
And you were part of what brought us to today's church.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so I think this is a pillar church.
Yeah.
Those pillars that are in front of the church, to me, those make this church strong.
They look solid and as you say, strong support.
So this is where I will be until I kick the bucket.
Well, I hope that's a long way in the future, because you have things to do, more ministry.
Well, I love life, and I want to live as much as I can. One of the things that Gayle, my wife, and I did, we traveled the world. Mm-hmm. Europe, Asia, Africa, Middle East, and I even led a group from this church to Israel and Jordan way back when, in '83. But we were able not only to minister here, but also to travel and enjoy life.
A full life.
And I will continue as best I can.
Sure, yeah, well, we hope it's for many more years. Well, if there's one thing you would say your hope is for this church as we face the future, what would be your hope for the continuing ministry and life of this church?
Continue what we've been doing by reaching out to others in a love, taking what Jesus talked about, and as much as you've done unto least of these, you've done it unto me. Mm-hmm. And to do that is to love our Creator God.
Well, with that, I just want to thank you, Jerry, for sharing your life and your ministry, the blessings that you've had, and the blessing that you've been to this church. So thank you very much.
Well, you're very kind to say that, and thank you very much. Music is a big part of my life. And the choir, the organist, the organ itself, that is instrumental in the worship of God. Martin Luther said, music is a gift from God. So we take our music and lift it right back up to God. Say, here we are. We had good musicians here. And I had a grateful heart that at our worship services, the music enhanced. Even what I often didn't quite do, they picked up the slack.
Yep. You just said something about the music as an offering up to God, and it really struck me that we in the church here do make every effort to think about the music is our expression of our faith and joy toward God. For one thing, we don't clap when there's a good musical rendition. We do that. But the whole point of our music is not to satisfy us or say that's really means something to me, I appreciate it, but rather we were offering it up to God.
Well, it's two prongs. It's a way of expressing our faith in God, but it's also a way of expressing what we believe. If you read the words of the hymns, for example, even without singing them, if you just read the words, it articulates much of what we believe, how we believe.
Well, that's one thing that struck me when we came, the words of the hymns in the hymn book of this church. Unlike other churches I've been in, they've changed the words often, not just the pronouns, but the theology in the hymns.
Yeah.
And I guess that's not true in many churches. It's really something to look at here.
Well, we are blessed with good musicians. The bell choir, the choir itself, the organ, soloist. We're blessed. Now they never asked me to sing, thank goodness, because you only hear me singing in the shower. But I loved it. I love to sing inwardly. I don't have a really good voice, but I love to hear music and to be a part of it. One of the things I really love is opera and classical music, and the hymns of the church. All of that to me is a part of me.
Yeah. Well, I think music is certainly one of the things that attracts newcomers today, and let's hope that it goes on in our church with wonderful, meaningful music, what we sing together as a congregation and what we hear from our wonderful choir.
Well, we also, last Sunday, we had the out loud, did I say that right? Out loud.
Out loud chorus. Yeah.
I mean, their voices were great, but we just have that opportunity of music all the time.
Yeah.
And we're blessed.
Well, let's hope that 19th century organ continues. Thanks to some of the things that happened during your ministry, and since then, I know there's been more than a few times a necessity of bringing it up to date.
Well, you can take this organ. This is Hook and Hastings organ. It was the premier kind of organ back in the 1800s. Now, over the years, back in the early 40s, I think it was mutilated by someone who thought they could fix the organ. The Hook and Hastings has push and pull, opening air passages. Well, fishing line does not, it can pull, but it can't push. So they thought they could put fishing wire back there. It had to be redone. That's why Kurt Roederer for Chicago, who came for course, the organ had been fixed before that, but it had to be upgraded and renewed. And that's one of the things that this church prizes is its Hook and Hastings organ.
Yes, I remember. And is it true? I think I remember hearing that in the 19th century it was powered by water.
That's right. And downstairs, I think we still have it. The custodian, before my time, they had to have electrical power to run the organ. And the custodian was paid $5 on Sunday to kind of on a bicycle type of thing pumped. And the water was given by the city for us to use to pump through to get electricity. I don't know how all that works, but that vehicle is still downstairs, I think. It was given, water was given to the other churches too, until finally the city council said, we're giving this water away. And they cut our water off. And that's where we went to electricity, other kinds of electricity. But that's right.
I don't think there are surviving churches that still have that apparatus.
That was just, to me, it's an oddity.
Yeah.
But that's the way they did it. But he was paid $5 a Sunday to pump, to make the electricity.
Right.
So I've been told. Now that's the story has been.
That's a good story.
But I've seen the bicycle type of instrument downstairs.
Yeah, well, that's great. Well, this church in its 150 years, I guess, has had a wonderful history of pastors and also members who have made this church what it's accomplished in the community and what it is today.
One of the things I've always wanted to do and never were able to do, I don't know if we'll ever be able to do, I wanted to take that lower bowels of the church, where the big furnace down there, and take that out and make that a columbarium underneath the sanctuary, like a crypt for members to be. But it never came to pass. That was always my dream to.
Well, that would be really interesting. That would be a
it's
project.
like a European thing where the underneath the crypt of the church is where the ashes of members of people are placed. And I always thought that was the right place to put a columbarium or a crypt. But
yes.
I never got that done.
Well, future leaders of the church will have to consider that and remember your suggestion for it. Yeah.
I'll be long gone by that time.
Well, I guess we all will, but our hope is for the future of this church to grow and continue.
The future of this church will continue.
Yeah.
I have no doubt about that this church will be here 50 to 100 years from now.
Yeah. It's a leader. I believe in justice and inclusiveness.
Justice, inclusiveness, and God. I think
God.
people still want to know the creative force that's behind all this.
Yeah.
How do we talk about that? And this church does.
Yes, a sense of God's presence when we gather, when we're out in the community, living our faith, representing this church. That's what it's about.
And when I come here, the friendliness, the kindness, the people who come here makes me want to come back.
Yeah. Well, I think we're all glad that you are back and can share with us your part a few decades ago in your leading this church, helping to make the church what it is today.
Well, I'm just so glad that they invited me to come here.
Right.
Long years ago.
Yeah.
It's interesting. That was 50 years ago that I first came here.
Yeah.
I want to say,
remarkable.
wow, where's
Well-
all these years gone?
Well, I'm grateful you're still here, and I hope that you will be here for a lot more years in the future.
Well, I hope so too.
Yes. So thank you, Jerry.
You're welcome.